Have you ever looked into someone's eyes after they hurt you only to see nothing? No guilt, no apology, just silence, as if your pain didn't even register. It's one of the most disorienting feelings a person can experience, being deeply wounded by someone who walks away like nothing ever happened. That kind of silence doesn't just sting, it echoes, it haunts. It leaves you questioning not just what happened, but whether it even mattered. And that question, did it even matter, can begin to unravel everything inside you. When someone hurts you and acts like they didn't, it sends a twisted message. It says, your feelings don't count, your pain isn't real, you're overreacting. But here's the truth, your pain is real, your reaction is valid, and you are not wrong for feeling broken over something others refuse to acknowledge. In fact, the very reason it hurts so much is because you care. You gave a piece of yourself, you trusted, you hoped. And they shattered that without hesitation, and then had the nerve to pretend it never happened. That kind of emotional betrayal leaves a scar that's deeper than most people can see. Because when there's no apology, no confrontation, no accountability, the pain doesn't get processed, it just gets buried. It hides behind your smile. It seeps into your thoughts. It makes you second-guess your worth. But let this truth settle in your soul. Just because someone refuses to acknowledge your pain doesn't mean it's not valid. And just because they walk away unbothered doesn't mean you have to stay broken. You see, healing begins the moment you stop needing their permission to feel hurt. The moment you say, what they did mattered, even if they pretend it didn't, is the moment you reclaim your power, because pretending something didn't happen is their defense mechanism, not your reality. And when you stop begging for closure from people who are emotionally unavailable, you open the door to something far more powerful, self-validation. You stop waiting for someone to care, and you begin to care for yourself. Staying engaged with this message isn't just about understanding them, it's about understanding you. It's about unlearning the lies they planted in your mind. It's about silencing that inner voice that keeps asking what you did wrong. Because the moment you realize you were hurt by someone who lacked the courage to own their actions, you stop chasing ghosts, you stop shrinking, and you begin to rise. If you've ever been left in silence, dismissed, or made to feel invisible, know this: your healing is not tied to their apology. It's tied to your decision to stop bleeding for someone who never intended to heal you. Stay with this message, because we're about to break down not just why they acted like nothing happened, but why that truth no longer has the power to define you. This is where transformation begins. This is where you take your voice back. The mind doesn't know how to let go of pain that has no explanation. It keeps searching, digging, replaying every word, every silence, trying to make sense of something senseless. That's what happens when someone hurts you and then walks away like nothing happened. It doesn't just wound you, it traps your mind in an endless loop, begging for answers you'll never get. You begin to question if you misunderstood everything, if you're being too sensitive, if maybe it was your fault. But that's the trap. When they refuse to acknowledge your pain, they force you to carry the weight of what they did alone. Your brain is wired to seek closure. It craves resolution, not just for logic, but for emotional safety. Without it, you're stuck in a state of emotional limbo. That's not weakness. That's human psychology. You can't move forward with confidence when your past is still screaming unanswered questions in your head. And yet, the more you wait for them to validate your pain, the more control they have over your healing. This is the truth that hurts the most. Sometimes, the person who caused the damage is the last person capable of giving you the peace you seek. They may never admit what they did. They may never apologize. They may pretend until their dying breath that they did nothing wrong. But here's what they can't control. They can't erase your truth. They can't rewrite your experience unless you let them. And every time you stop yourself from feeling because they won't own what they did, you silence your own soul. But every time you let yourself feel, even if it's ugly, even if it hurts, you take another step toward freedom. The moment you realize that healing doesn't come from them but from within, everything changes. You no longer wait to be chosen. You no longer beg to be heard. You no longer shrink to fit into someone else's comfort zone. You start listening to yourself. You start honoring the parts of you they tried to break, and that, right there, is the beginning of transformation. You have a choice. You can keep looping the pain, looking for answers from someone who won't even give you honesty. Or you can decide right now that your healing is worth more than their silence, that your peace is worth more than their avoidance, that your life cannot remain on pause waiting for closure that was never coming. This is the turning point. The pain may still echo, the questions may still rise, but you are no longer a prisoner to someone else's lack of accountability. You are the author of what happens next. And every breath you take that isn't centered around their memory is a breath of freedom. You're not broken, you're awakening. And the ones who left you with questions don't deserve to be the reason you never find your answers. You do, and you will. Some people will hurt you and then hide behind the silence, not because they didn't do anything wrong, but because facing what they did would force them to confront who they really are. And not everyone has the courage to do that. It's easier to pretend. It's easier to deflect, to deny, to disappear. It takes no strength to walk away from a mess you made, but it takes incredible strength to stay and clean it up. They chose the easy way out. You're the one left with the hard work of healing. But in that pain is a power they'll never understand. The ones who hurt without apology often carry a deep fear of accountability. It terrifies them more than losing you. Because accountability requires vulnerability. It requires maturity. It requires someone to step into discomfort, own their impact, and say, I was wrong. But instead of growth, they choose avoidance. Instead of honesty, they choose silence. They leave you with the burden of their emotional cowardice, and they expect you to absorb it without flinching. But you're not here to carry the weight of someone else's unwillingness to grow. You're not here to be a mirror for someone who refuses to look. You're here to evolve, to rise above, to stop giving your energy to those who refuse to handle yours with care. What they did is not a reflection of your worth. It is a reflection of their inability to process their own truth. People who hurt and pretend nothing happened are not strong. They're scared of guilt, of shame, of being exposed. So they act like you're the problem. They act like you're too sensitive, too dramatic, too much. But what they're really saying is, I can't face what I did, so I'll make you feel wrong for feeling anything at all. Don't buy into it. Don't let their silence rewrite your story. You felt something because something happened. That's the truth they want you to forget. But you won't. Every time they act like nothing happened, they're building a wall around their own growth. That's not your prison, it's theirs. You're not stuck because of them. You're stuck because you've been waiting for them to do something they're emotionally incapable of. But what if you stopped waiting? What if you decided that their silence is not your finish line, but your beginning? When someone won't admit they hurt you, your healing becomes an act of rebellion. Your strength becomes the evidence that they didn't break you. And your peace becomes the proof that they never held true power over you. This isn't about revenge. It's about release. This is about becoming whole in a world that tried to fracture you. This is about rising, not because they changed, but because you did. Because you chose to stop needing them to see what they did and started seeing yourself instead. That's where healing begins. That's where freedom starts. And it's all within you now. There's a kind of silence that doesn't come from peace. It comes from manipulation. When someone knows they've caused pain but chooses to carry on like nothing happened, they're not just ignoring you. They're distorting reality. That silence is a calculated decision, even if it's unconscious. It's their way of shifting the weight of their actions off their shoulders and onto yours. And if you're not aware of what's happening, you'll start to believe the lie. You'll start to think maybe it wasn't a big deal. Maybe you are overreacting. Maybe your pain isn't real. That's the beginning of self-abandonment. Gaslighting isn't always loud. Sometimes it's the quiet erasure of your feelings. Sometimes it looks like a smile after betrayal, a casual text after emotional damage, a normal conversation after crossing a boundary. They act like everything is fine, and the moment you try to bring up what hurt you, they deflect or disappear. That's how they control the narrative. By pretending there's nothing to talk about, they force you to question whether there's anything left to feel. But you feel it, you carry it, and no amount of pretending can erase what your soul still remembers. You are not crazy for remembering what they want you to forget. You are not weak for being affected by what they refuse to acknowledge. That emotional whiplash, the confusion, the self-doubt, the racing thoughts, that is a symptom of emotional manipulation, not personal failure. Your nervous system is reacting to the disconnect between your truth and their denial, and that is a perfectly human response. The first step toward healing is to stop participating in the lie. Stop matching their silence with silence. Stop matching their comfort with your discomfort. Stop shrinking just so they don't have to face the impact of their actions. Your pain is not an inconvenience. It is a signal. A message from within that says, something here is not right. And when you ignore that message to keep the peace, you don't actually create peace. You create inner chaos. Validation doesn't have to come from the one who broke you. It can come from the mirror. It can come from your own voice saying, yes, that hurt. Yes, I deserved better. Yes, my feelings are real. That is how you begin to reclaim your power, by choosing to believe yourself again. Because the greatest damage isn't what they did. It's what you started believing about yourself after they did it. You are not here to exist in the shadows of someone else's denial. You are here to rise into clarity, into strength, into truth. Their silence is not your cue to doubt yourself. It's your cue to trust yourself even more. When they choose to gaslight, you choose to ground yourself in reality. When they choose to forget, you choose to remember. And not to stay stuck, but to heal, to rise, and to walk away with your head held higher than ever. Because you deserve that clarity, you deserve that freedom, and now is the time to claim it. They will try to convince you that it wasn't that bad, that you misunderstood, that you took things too personally. They'll downplay your pain not because it wasn't real, but because admitting its weight would require them to carry responsibility. And some people would rather bury the truth than lift even an ounce of it. So they rewrite the story. They erase the moments that broke you. They act like your tears were an overreaction, like your silence was dramatic, like your boundaries were unreasonable. Not because that's the truth, but because the truth exposes them, and they can't afford to be seen. But just because someone minimizes your pain doesn't make it smaller, and just because someone refuses to see the damage they caused doesn't mean it wasn't destructive. You were there. You felt it. You lived it. And you don't need anyone else's permission to call it what it was. It was hurtful. It was confusing. It was unfair. You don't need to justify how deeply something affected you. If it broke your trust, it matters. If it shattered your peace, it matters. If it made you question yourself, it matters. Your healing begins the moment you stop letting someone else decide whether or not you should be in pain. There is nothing noble about pretending you're fine when you're not. There is nothing strong about swallowing your emotions so others can remain comfortable. That's not strength, that's suppression. And it slowly erodes your spirit from the inside out. Real strength is telling yourself the truth even when others lie to avoid theirs. Real strength is giving yourself the compassion that others refuse to offer. It's looking your pain in the face and saying, I believe you. You're not too much for feeling deeply. You're not too broken for being hurt. You're not too sensitive for needing honesty, respect, and emotional safety. Those are basic human needs, not signs of weakness. People who call you too emotional are often too disconnected to feel anything themselves. That's not your flaw. That's their limitation. And you are not here to bend yourself into silence just to be tolerated by people who lack the capacity to care properly. Every time someone tries to convince you it wasn't a big deal, remind yourself, if it affected your heart, it was a big deal. If it made you question your worth, it was a big deal. If it changed how you see yourself, it was a big deal. You don't need their validation to honor your truth. You only need the courage to stop gaslighting yourself. That's where healing grows. That's where strength takes root. That's where your power lives. Not in pretending it didn't happen, but in rising from the ashes with the full weight of your truth still in your hands. Because what they called an overreaction might just be the exact thing that wakes up the strongest version of you. People don't run from you because you're too much. They run because they're not enough for the truth you carry. When someone causes pain and refuses to face it, it isn't because they're unaware, it's because they're unwilling. Unwilling to see themselves honestly. Unwilling to be held accountable. Unwilling to feel the discomfort of guilt. So they take the easier road. They ignore. They minimize. They pretend. And when that doesn't work, they run. But their escape is not your responsibility. Their inability to confront reality is not your burden to carry. You are not meant to chase closure from people who are hiding from themselves. They don't get to hurt you and then disappear behind denial. They don't get to stay emotionally comfortable while you wrestle with the wreckage alone. And yet that's exactly what happens when you seek understanding from someone who lacks the maturity to provide it. They run not because you were wrong, but because you were right. And the truth has weight. It demands to be felt. It exposes character. And those who haven't built theirs will always run from that exposure. You don't need to waste your breath trying to explain the damage to someone who's invested in pretending it never happened. Some people don't want the truth. They want comfort. They want protection from the reality of who they've been. And when your voice threatens that illusion, they will do anything to silence it, including labeling you as difficult, emotional, unstable. But all of that is deflection. It's projection. It's avoidance dressed up as judgment. Don't internalize it. Their words are not a reflection of your truth. They are a reflection of their fear. When someone hurts you and runs, it's tempting to believe you drove them away, that if you had been quieter, more understanding, more patient, they might have stayed. But that belief is a trap. You didn't lose someone. They lost access to someone willing to see them, love them, and hold space for them to grow. They chose to walk away from that because staying would mean facing a mirror they weren't ready to look into. You don't need people who disappear when things get real. You need people who lean in when the truth gets heavy. You need people who don't just love you when it's easy, but stay accountable when it's not. But until those people arrive, be that person for yourself. Be the one who doesn't run from the truth. Be the one who feels it all and still chooses to rise. Because every time you stop waiting for their return, you return to yourself. And that's where the healing lives. Not in chasing what left, but in standing tall with what remained. Your strength, your clarity, your truth. They ran because they couldn't handle the weight. You stayed because you're learning to carry it with power. That's what sets you apart. That's why you'll rise. There's a difference between emotional maturity and emotional cowardice. One faces discomfort, the other avoids it. One says, I hurt you, and I take responsibility, while the other says nothing, hides, deflects, or blames you instead. When someone causes harm and lacks the strength to admit it, what you're dealing with is not a misunderstanding. It's a lack of growth. And it's not your job to teach someone how to be accountable when they're committed to staying in denial. You can't force growth in someone who's more loyal to their comfort than your healing. Emotionally mature people own their impact. They don't hide behind silence or act like nothing happened. They don't make you beg for clarity. They don't punish you with distance when you speak your truth. They lean in, not away. But those who run from responsibility don't just avoid the conversation. They avoid you. They avoid the version of themselves they don't want to confront. And the more you chase after their validation, the more you abandon your own. You don't need people who leave when things get heavy. You don't need people who love only the parts of you that don't hold them accountable. You need people who can sit in the fire with you, who don't crumble when the truth shows up, who don't weaponize your feelings or use silence as control. But most of all, you need to be that person for yourself. You need to be the one who listens when your pain speaks, even if no one else will. Because the most dangerous thing you can do is silence yourself just to protect someone who hurt you. Stop expecting maturity from someone who's emotionally unequipped to give it. Stop hoping they'll wake up and become the version of themselves you imagined. What they refuse to face is not your cross to carry. And their inability to meet you with honesty doesn't mean you're asking for too much. It means they're offering too little. And you deserve more than emotional crumbs from someone who lacks the courage to be real. Every time you choose to rise above the silence, you grow stronger. Every time you decide not to mirror their immaturity, you reclaim your identity. Every time you say, I see what happened, even if they pretend it didn't, you validate the deepest parts of your soul. That's not weakness. That's wisdom. That's growth. That's the quiet rebuilding of someone who refuses to be broken by another's refusal to grow. You are not here to babysit someone's emotions while they ignore yours. You are not here to beg for connection from someone who can't even connect with themselves. You are here to rise, to outgrow the silence, to become louder in your healing than they ever were in their avoidance. And every step you take away from emotional cowardice is a step toward a life that honors your depth, your truth, and the strength it took to walk away without closure. There's a unique kind of pain that comes from being unseen, not just ignored, but deeply and deliberately overlooked. When someone hurts you and acts like it never happened, they're not just refusing to take responsibility. They're erasing you from the story. They're choosing to protect their comfort over your reality. And that choice cuts deep, because it tells you, without a single word, that your feelings don't matter, that your experience isn't worth acknowledging, that you can be wounded and still treated like nothing changed. That kind of invisibility can leave a mark deeper than the wound itself. Human beings need to feel seen, not out of weakness, but because connection is built on recognition. Validation is not about needing someone's approval. It's about needing your experience to be real in the eyes of someone who claimed to care. When that recognition is stolen, you're left doubting not just the moment, but your own mind. You start wondering if you imagined it, if you're overthinking, if your heart is too sensitive. But it's not. You're not. What you're feeling is real. And the worst thing you can do is abandon yourself just to match someone else's denial. You are allowed to grieve what they refuse to acknowledge. You are allowed to feel heavy over a silence that was never supposed to follow your pain. You are allowed to miss the apology you never received and mourn the validation that was never offered. But you are not meant to live there. You are not meant to stay in the waiting room of someone else's emotional absence. You are meant to move, to rise, to rebuild your sense of self, not on their recognition, but on your own resolve to heal with or without it. There is strength in saying, I see myself even when they don't. There is power in standing tall in a truth that others refuse to name. And there is freedom in realizing that the need to be acknowledged does not make you weak, it makes you human. But depending on others to fill that need when they've already shown you, they won't, only leaves you empty. So give yourself what they would not. Say the words they never said. Offer the validation they withheld. Look in the mirror and say, I mattered. That moment mattered. And so does my healing. You don't have to be understood to be whole. You don't need their eyes on your wounds to begin closing them. What you need is to turn inward with honesty, with courage, with compassion, and say, I refuse to disappear just because someone else refused to see me. This is how you reclaim your worth. Not through revenge, not through silence, but through presence, through self-honoring, through the daily decision to stop waiting for them to care and start proving to yourself that you always mattered, with or without their acknowledgement. That is healing, that is strength, and that is where you rise. There's a quiet suffering that comes from waiting for an apology that will never come. You hold on to hope that one day they'll wake up and see the damage, that one day they'll come back, look you in the eye, and say the words your heart has been aching to hear. But deep down, you already know they won't. Not because they don't remember, but because they've chosen not to care. And that choice is more painful than the act itself. The truth is, some people would rather lose you than face themselves. Some people would rather protect their image than repair what they broke. You are left staring at a door that will never open, wondering if your pain will ever be seen. But healing isn't about their apology. It's not about changing them. It's about setting yourself free. Because waiting for closure from someone who thrives in avoidance is like standing in the rain, hoping the storm will feel guilty enough to stop. You can't control their growth. You can't make them see what they refuse to face. And the longer you wait, the deeper you bury your own peace beneath someone else's silence. That's not healing. That's emotional captivity. And you weren't born to live in emotional chains. Let go of the idea that closure must come from the one who broke you. Closure is not a moment, it's a decision. It's choosing to walk away, not because everything is fixed, but because you are done bleeding for someone who never tried to stop the bleeding. It's choosing to stop chasing explanations from people who don't even know how to be honest with themselves. They can't give you what they don't have. And if they had the capacity to care the way you needed, they would have already shown it. You deserve peace, not confusion. You deserve release, not repetition. And you deserve to heal, not through their guilt, but through your own courage to stop making excuses for someone else's emotional absence. You've cried enough. You've questioned enough. You've tried enough. Now it's time to choose you, to stop opening wounds by replaying memories that lead nowhere, to stop rehearsing conversations with someone who's no longer listening, to stop expecting accountability from someone who's never learned how to carry it. Closure is when you realize that your healing no longer depends on their awareness. It's when you say, I see what happened. I feel what it did to me, and I will rise in spite of it. That's power. That's transformation. That's the moment you stop being a victim of someone else's silence and start becoming the hero of your own healing. The apology may never come, but your peace will. When you stop waiting, when you stop needing, when you start choosing to let go, freedom begins. Not because they made it right, but because you no longer need them to. You are not weak because you feel broken. You are not broken because you were hurt. The depth of your emotion is not a flaw. It is proof that you allowed yourself to care in a world that too often rewards detachment. You felt deeply, you trusted fully, and you gave honestly. That is not something to be ashamed of. That is strength disguised as vulnerability. And even if your heart is aching now, it doesn't mean you failed. It means you were brave enough to love, even when it wasn't returned the way you deserved. Pain doesn't make you less. It reveals what matters to you. It brings you closer to truth. And sometimes it strips away everything superficial so you can finally see who you really are. The world teaches you to hide your feelings, to toughen up, to move on without acknowledging the wound. But healing doesn't happen through suppression. It happens through truth. You don't have to pretend to be fine when you're not. You don't have to smile when you're hurting. You don't have to keep pushing forward just to meet someone else's expectations of strength. Real strength is pausing. Real strength is saying, this hurt me, and I will take the time I need to heal. No one sees the quiet battles you fight each day. The way you try to stay strong when your heart feels heavy. The way you keep showing up for life, even when a part of you wants to give up. And yet, here you are. Breathing, feeling, hoping, still moving. That is resilience. That is power. And that is the kind of strength that doesn't scream for attention, but speaks in presence, in courage, in the decision to keep choosing yourself even when someone else did not. You are not too damaged to heal. You are not too far gone to rebuild. The person they left behind is not the person you have to remain. You can grow from this. You can rise with scars, with lessons, with boundaries sharper than ever, and a heart stronger than before. You are not here to remain in the pain. You are here to rise through it, to become more, not less, because of it, to transform that ache into awareness, to shape that heartbreak into a higher version of yourself that no one can ever take from you again. Every tear you've shed has softened what needed to be softened and revealed what needed to be seen. Now it's time to choose you. Not out of anger, not out of revenge, but out of love. Love for the parts of you that stayed loyal through it all. Love for the future that still waits. Love for the version of you who knows that this pain is not the end. It's the beginning of becoming something stronger than the silence, deeper than the wound, and greater than the person who walked away. You didn't lose your value because someone failed to recognize it. Their inability to see your worth does not subtract from who you are. People often overlook what shines quietly, misjudge what doesn't beg for approval, and misunderstand the kind of strength that chooses peace over chaos. But you are not here to convince anyone of your worth. You are here to embody it, to walk in it, to protect it like it's sacred, because it is. What you carry inside, your heart, your mind, your character, it's rare. And rare things are not for everyone to understand. There will be people who hurt you, not because you did anything wrong, but because they are not capable of love in the way you are. Some people live in survival mode, reacting instead of reflecting. They push away what feels too real, too honest, too deep because it threatens the false safety of their emotional walls. But you cannot shrink yourself to match their comfort zones. You cannot dim your light to fit inside their darkness. And you cannot carry the burden of healing people who choose not to confront their own pain. That is not your job. Your job is to stay true to yourself, even when others run from the truth. What happened to you wasn't fair, but it taught you something unshakable. It taught you where you end and someone else begins. It taught you to stop waiting for closure from people who refuse to own their actions. It taught you that silence can be crueler than words, and that pretending nothing happened is a form of emotional manipulation designed to protect their ego at the expense of your sanity. You are not crazy. You are not overreacting. You are simply awake. Aware of the games, the patterns, the way people dodge responsibility while expecting your forgiveness. That awareness is your power. Use it. Let it guide you not into bitterness, but into boundaries. Let it teach you that walking away is not weakness, it's wisdom. That peace is not found in fixing someone else, but in finally choosing yourself. This is your turning point. The moment you stop bleeding for people who never brought bandages. The moment you decide that being whole matters more than being understood. Because truthfully, not everyone is meant to understand your healing. It's not a group project, it's personal. And it's yours. You don't need to wait for an apology that may never come. You don't need to watch them act like nothing happened while you drown in the echo of their silence. Stand up. Not for them, for you. Take your dignity back from the hands that fumbled it. Reclaim your energy from the places that never deserved it. You are not here to beg, to chase, or to explain. You are here to rise, to rebuild, to reclaim the parts of you that forgot how powerful you truly are. And from this moment forward, you will. You don't owe your future to the version of you that tolerated less than you deserved. You don't owe loyalty to the patterns that kept you small, to the thoughts that kept you afraid, or to the fears that held you hostage. Growth demands that you confront your past, not to dwell in it, but to rise from it. And rising means shedding. Shedding the guilt that wasn't yours to carry. Shedding the shame that was placed on you by those too broken to see your worth. Shedding the belief that you must stay wounded to be loved. You are not here to relive the pain. You are here to transcend it. To become something the past never saw coming. The moment you start honoring yourself, the world shifts. Not because it suddenly becomes easier, but because you become unshakable. You stop chasing validation and start living in alignment. You stop begging for clarity from people who speak in confusion. You stop tolerating the bare minimum and start expecting reciprocity. Your time becomes sacred. Your energy becomes non-negotiable. And your peace becomes your standard, not a luxury. You realize that not everyone gets access to you, and that is not arrogance. That is self-respect. You've been through enough to know that pain doesn't build character, it reveals it. It strips away the illusions and leaves only truth. And the truth is, you are far more powerful than your circumstances. You are not defined by your scars. You are defined by how fiercely you refuse to let them become your identity. You are defined by how you chose to keep showing up, to keep believing, to keep becoming, despite everything that tried to break you. That choice makes you dangerous to the patterns that once controlled you. That choice makes you unstoppable. Healing is not soft, it is not passive, it is the hardest work you will ever do. Because it requires you to stand in front of your own reflection and say, I am no longer available for anything that drains me. It asks you to confront the habits that once felt like home, but were really just survival mechanisms in disguise. It forces you to detach from what feels familiar in favor of what leads to freedom. And freedom requires discipline. It requires intention. It requires choosing yourself, even when your old self begs you not to. You are not just healing, you are rewriting the script. You are breaking cycles, ending generational pain, and teaching your mind a new way to live. That's not weakness. That's power. Quiet, steady, unrelenting power. The kind that doesn't need to be seen to be real. The kind that radiates from within. You are not behind. You are not broken. You are building. And every single day you choose peace over chaos, clarity over confusion, self-worth over self-sacrifice. You're winning, not loudly, not dramatically, but completely. This is how transformation happens. Not all at once, but one powerful decision at a time. You were not born to shrink yourself into someone else's comfort zone. You were not created to apologize for your intensity, your ambition, or your inner fire. That fire is not a flaw, it is your essence. It is the part of you that knows your worth, even when the world tries to convince you otherwise. You are not meant to be easily understood, easily accepted, or easily tolerated. You are meant to rise in your full power, even when it intimidates those who have settled for less. You are not here to make others feel comfortable with your silence. You are here to speak with conviction, to walk with purpose, and to take up the space your soul was born to claim. You owe it to yourself to stop watering yourself down. Every time you pretend to be less than you are, you delay the life that's waiting for the real you to show up. Every time you play small to keep the peace, you sacrifice your potential on the altar of approval. But you are not here to be liked. You are here to be real. You are here to become the kind of person who no longer chases validation because you know your value. The kind of person who is no longer moved by opinions because your vision is too clear. The kind of person who sets boundaries not to control others, but to protect your peace, your energy, and your destiny. Growth requires courage, the courage to walk away from the familiar, the courage to let go of the version of you that tolerated disrespect, that feared rejection, that accepted crumbs and called it love. You do not rise by waiting for someone to give you permission. You rise by deciding that you are done being available for anything that doesn't honor your soul. You rise by choosing discomfort over stagnation, clarity over chaos, and truth over temporary relief. You rise by embracing the pain of growth instead of the comfort of mediocrity. You are not your past. You are the result of what you've survived, yes, but even more so, you are the force that refused to be defined by it. You are the choice that keeps showing up, the fire that keeps burning, the will that keeps moving forward. Every time you rise after being knocked down, you reclaim your power. Every time you say no to what no longer serves you, you realign with your truth. Every time you choose discipline over distraction, you build a life rooted in purpose instead of pain. This journey is not about becoming someone new. It's about returning to who you were before the world told you who to be. It's about remembering your strength, reclaiming your voice, and stepping into your power without apology. You are not too much. You are exactly enough for everything you are here to do. Stand tall, speak truth, own your space. Because you were never meant to blend in, you were born to rise. You don't rise by waiting for the right moment. You rise by declaring that this moment is enough. You rise by refusing to allow fear to make your choices for you. Every excuse is a chain, and every chain you break pulls you closer to your highest self. You were not given breath to live on autopilot. You were not gifted life to drift, numb, and distracted. You are here to disrupt the cycle. You are here to reclaim your mind from everything that tried to program you into passivity. You are here to stand in full ownership of your thoughts, your emotions, your habits, your identity. You are here to break patterns, destroy limitations, and rebuild your life in alignment with your deepest truth. Stop waiting to feel ready. You'll never be fully ready to become someone you've never been before. Growth does not come wrapped in comfort. It comes clothed in discomfort, clothed in uncertainty, clothed in the pain of shedding everything you've outgrown. But if you're willing to endure that, if you're willing to stay with the tension instead of running from it, you will become something unshakable. You will become someone who is no longer pulled by the noise of the world, because the voice within has grown louder than any distraction. You will stop asking for directions to places only your soul was meant to find. You will stop begging for reassurance when you've already been built with everything required to rise. The mind will try to keep you small. It will whisper every fear, every doubt, every old belief that once kept you safe. But safety is not the goal. Evolution is. You weren't designed to merely survive. You were designed to transform, to become, to evolve. The pain you avoid is the very pressure that forges your strength. The discomfort you fear is the gatekeeper of your next level. You must choose power over pity, discipline over distraction, inner truth over external noise. No one is coming to save you because you are not broken. You are simply unfolding. You are waking up. You are remembering. Everything you desire begins on the other side of your decision to no longer betray yourself. Every time you abandon your potential for approval, you lose a piece of who you are. But every time you act in alignment with your vision, even when no one claps for you, even when no one understands, you reclaim your power. You weren't meant to live chasing acceptance. You were meant to live in relentless pursuit of your purpose. You were meant to master your thoughts, sharpen your discipline, and elevate your energy. You were meant to lead yourself, to build unshakable inner standards, to rise not just once, but over and over again, until there is no part of you left that believes in giving up. You are the beginning and the breakthrough. You are the decision and the transformation. You are the fire and the rise. Now own it. The moment you stop negotiating with your weakness, your power begins to emerge. As long as you make space for hesitation, you delay your transformation. Your future doesn't unfold through thoughts alone. It unfolds through execution, through action rooted in conviction, not comfort. You cannot think your way into greatness. You must act your way through every resistance that tries to seduce you back into who you used to be. You must move when your mind screams to stay still. You must advance when your fear tells you to retreat. You must choose your evolution deliberately, daily, relentlessly. Strength is not built through ease. It is forged through repeated confrontation with everything inside you that wants to give up. Every time you override that voice, every time you rise when it's easier to hide, you create a new identity. Not the one shaped by fear or limitation, but the one born through conscious rebellion against mediocrity. You are not meant to repeat the same thoughts and habits and expect a new reality. You are meant to step beyond what's familiar into what's necessary. You are meant to replace the temporary relief of excuses with the permanent fulfillment of growth. You are not too late. You are not behind. You are right on time to become everything your soul knows you can be. Discipline is the gateway. It is the internal contract between you and the highest version of yourself. You do not break it just because you feel tired, uninspired, or unseen. You uphold it because you have decided to live in integrity with your potential. There will always be a reason to delay, always a justification to stay where it's safe. But safety is the enemy of change. The more you crave it, the more you surrender your future to stagnation. You must get hungry for the challenge, obsessed with the process, addicted to the daily climb. Because results are not born in grand declarations. They are born in silent repetitions, early mornings, late nights, lonely hours, and countless unseen efforts. You do not need more time. You need more clarity. You need more courage. You need to stop postponing your power until the conditions are perfect. They never will be. The breakthrough isn't coming to you. It's buried beneath the discipline you keep avoiding. You rise not by thinking about becoming powerful, but by choosing power every single day, especially when it's inconvenient. You rise when you decide that your growth matters more than your mood. You rise when you refuse to let your feelings determine your future. You are not weak for feeling resistance. You are human. But you become unstoppable when you no longer let it dictate your direction. Stand up. Lock in. Get ruthless with your habits and non-negotiable with your evolution. Because if you don't claim your life, no one will do it for you. This is the moment. This is the shift. The fire is already within you. Now act like it. You were not born to blend in with your distractions. You were not designed to crumble every time discomfort shows up. The truth is, your potential is buried beneath the layers of convenience you've grown used to. It's not that you lack the strength. It's that you've forgotten how to access it. Every time you hesitate, you let the false comfort of your current self overpower the demand of your higher self. And that hesitation becomes a habit. That hesitation becomes your reality. But the moment you stop feeding it, the moment you decide that enough is enough, everything begins to shift. Your inner power doesn't wait for permission, it waits for a decision. One decision to break the cycle. One decision to rise above everything that once held you down. The world doesn't owe you transformation. It's your job to earn it through action, through sacrifice, through doing what most won't, so you can become what most never will. Your distractions will beg for your attention, but your purpose must demand your discipline. Every moment you choose progress over comfort, you cast a vote for the future version of yourself. You train your mind to follow strength, not weakness. You train your spirit to lead, not follow. You do not need more motivation, you need more responsibility. You need to hold yourself accountable for every excuse, every delay, every wasted moment that you allowed to pass. You are not a victim of your circumstances. You are the architect of your standards, and those standards shape your identity. If your goals do not terrify you, they are too small. If your routine does not demand sacrifice, it is too soft. If your vision does not stretch your current capacity, then it's not worthy of who you're meant to become. You must feel the friction. You must embrace the resistance. You must stop hoping for things to get easier and instead train yourself to get stronger. Growth has a cost. That cost is comfort. That cost is old habits, toxic thoughts, and shallow priorities. It's time to upgrade your internal code. Not someday. Not when you feel ready. Now. You've already waited too long. The life you crave won't come from who you are today. It comes from who you become when you stop running from challenge. It comes from who you become when you stop negotiating with laziness and start executing with obsession. Burn the excuses. Break the mental chains. Build the mindset that says, no matter what, I move forward. That voice inside you whispering that you're not ready, that voice is lying. You've always had what it takes. You've always carried the fire. You've just been too distracted to feel its heat. It's time to ignite it. Not through more talking, through action. Through choices that reflect your greatness, not your doubts. This is your season to rise, not with noise, with discipline, with consistency, with unshakable will. You are the answer. You are the force. Now move like it.